What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of the CTW Podcast. I am your host, Rob Haytan. Join with me are my two co-hosts. You guys know them. You guys love them, Justin Lowe and Ian Angelo. This is episode 49, guys, of the Celtics Talk Weekly podcast. We got a fun one, an exciting one ahead of you. Again, a little bit slower off-season time. We're in the dog days. But however, before we get started, guys, I do want to say, if you're not following us on social media, go do that right now. All of our links are in the description down below to our main account, Celtics Talk Weekly, and all of our personals. We appreciate the support you guys have been showing with the podcast, finally coming back weekly, and we're super excited to get into this podcast. Now, before we get started, Ian, I guess this is us getting started. You had quite the interaction yesterday. Got the chance to sit down or get the chance to meet Peyton Pritchard. I'm interested. I want to hear how that overall experience was for you.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was at the New England Picture at the South Shore Mall in Braintree. He had a signing going on there, and it was pretty cool. I got the photo and picture ticket, and then when I went to do the photo, he recognized me. Peyton Pritchard apparently knew who I was from my videos, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of in shock because I didn't know he would know. So, but yeah, so apparently Peyton Pritchard knows about my videos. And when the autograph session hit, I joked around with him and I'm like, hey, I mean, you got to get you in a video. And he's like, yeah, we'll have to set something up. So
That would be hype.
the
That would
the
feed
Peyton Pritchard
families right
collab,
there.
the Peyton Pritchard collab might be coming soon, but we'll have to see about that.
It might
That
be
would-
like it might be appropriate to do it after beating like Jared McCain in the Philadelphia 76ers. Like that
that would
might
be hilarious.
That might be the time to do it.
Yeah.
That might be
Oh,
the
yeah.
time.
That would be awesome if we could get that. Well, let's make that happen. Let's make that happen. Ian and Peyton Pritchard, after we beat the Philadelphia 76ers, we need that collab to happen right now. However, we got a really weird episode talking about some weird topics. I'm not going to lie. The first one up that I got here is the whole Derrick White scuffle that we saw this weekend at the Colorado football game versus Colorado State. Derrick White got into a little scuffle, it looked like, with a fan who apparently was not happy with Derrick White, which, again, I don't know how you can not be happy with Derrick White. He seems like one of the nicest, chillest guys out there in the athletic world. Again, the video via TMZ, who they captured it and got their hands on that. I kind of want to hear your guys' overall thoughts and opinions kind of on that. Again, weird topic, but kind of feels worth noting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of was that he now has an army of angry Bostonians coming after him for thinking about injuring Derrick White. So, yeah, that guy has a world of pain ahead of him.
Genuinely, on a serious note, I don't know who would ever have a problem with Derrick White. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Like it's like I should have looked this up before we hit record. How many technical fouls does Derrick White even have? Like, Derrick White is the type, like, if somebody's trash talking him, like, he's the type to just kind of give like a smile and like shake his head and walk away. Like, he's not one to turn around and get back in your face and throw a punch, and that's just not him. And even in the video, like, you could just tell, like, the person swung. It looked like they made contact with Derrick White. Derrick White was also smart about the whole situation. Like, he knows he just signed an extension. The season's coming up. He has to report back to camp next week. Like, I thought he did a very good job of containing himself. I would love to know the context behind it. The details still have not dropped from the situation. So I would love to hear the details of it, because I could never imagine why somebody would swing on Derrick White. And you could hear a young lady screaming, like, guys, it's just sports. It's just sports. So evidently,
you know what? The crazy thing is that, like, that Colorado State versus Colorado, especially right now, that football rivalry they got going on, those two teams do not like each other. And especially Colorado State has some real ill words to say. I mean, you saw what their quarterback had to say about Shador Sanders and, the Colorado's football program, and, about followers can't buy you wins, whatever it is. So I'd like to think that it was a Colorado State fan just taking it a little too personal.
Well,
Because we all see Derrick White on a nightly basis and how he acts in interviews and on the court, as a family
right.
man. The guy is you can tell, so joyful, so happy, so nice that it would like utterly shock. He was literally just the target of probably a drunk, angry Colorado State fan.
It's so funny because Derrick White's like first interview in Boston was just him cracking dad jokes. Like it was just
Yeah.
him like cracking dad. Like that's just the type of guy Derrick White is. And I don't know. I really want to hear the context to it. I love reading all the social media comments where it's like this dude just punched the whole city of Boston. Like people are like, I want to know who this guy is. I want to know where he is. It's so funny. Like I'm even seeing like Lakers fans, like Lakers fan pages and Sixers fan. It's like, who hates Derrick White? Like nobody hates Derrick White. It's just something you
Yeah.
don't do. It's just like you don't do it. So I really wonder. I really wonder what was said and what happened because it's just ridiculous. I thought it was a meme at first when I saw it, like TMZ, and then it cut to Derrick White getting clocked. I thought it was a meme. I thought it was AI because AI's taking over now. And no, it's the real deal. I did not expect a Derrick White fight to show up in my feed.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what Derrick White said. Nothing constitutes a spinning back fist at somebody's head. Like, I don't care what somebody says. Yeah, that guy better not step foot in the city of Boston.
Well,
But I think my favorite part of the video though was the guy at the end who was like, "How dare you hit Derrick White?" or something like that. And I'm like, "Yeah, how dare you? How dare you even think about touching Derrick White like that?"
How does one with those tendencies end up on the field? Like how does he? Well, like because Derrick White, obviously an NBA player, an NBA champion, a Colorado alum, like very like prestigious. When he enters the arena, it's like, oh, Derrick White's here. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Right.
like, how does one with those tendencies end up in the face of Derrick White? Is my problem. Where
I
it's
don't
like,
know how he wasn't able to get like a box or something.
yeah,
Like, I mean,
it was very
I'm sure
weird.
he's fine. I'm sure he's fine sitting down near the stands, but he's kind of Derrick White. Like you
Yeah,
couldn't get him a box. Like I know he went to Colorado, but like you couldn't get him
yeah.
some box seats somewhere. Like
And how the hell do
I
you
don't know.
let that man? Yeah, I don't know. So just a weird situation. Good to see Derrick White is okay though. Nothing serious. Good to see the other guy's okay, even though he's a little bit crazy. You never want to see something like that happen. So just a weird, worth noting and addressing on the podcast topic of conversation for really what we got to work with here in the
It's
dry part of it.
it's just funny because you'd think like, especially just like reading headlines, like NBA player gets in fight, like gets punched or whatever. Like you'd think like, oh, Dylan Brooks, Draymond Green, Kevin Porter Jr., like somebody controversial, somebody who's been in this situation before. ... Derrick White. You just never think Derrick White would be at the other end of that headline. So I don't. I think it's ridiculous. I think Derrick White did a great job. He didn't really retaliate. He definitely tried to get to him, and then once he was held back, he kind of kept his cool. And it's like Derrick White's the type where it's like if he gets punched, he'd probably hug the person, be like, "Dude, are you okay? Like, what are you going through?" Like that's just the type of guy I
Yeah.
think Derrick White is. Like he's
Yeah,
just a genuine dude.
right.
So I don't know what the hell was going on out there in Colorado. I'm just happy that he walked out of that alive, and he's gonna get a great start to training camp or preseason because we're just which I'm sure we'll talk about. We're just a week away from training camp and
Right.
just about 2 weeks away from preseason.
Yeah. Well, like I don't know. You were talking about like random NBA fights. There was like another one that happened earlier this year with like Dario Saric and like Ivica Zubac or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's with all these random NBA players getting into fights? Like, how does it keep ending up getting into this situation? But nah,
League's getting a little bit more physical, I
screw that
guess.
guy, screw that guy. And
Um,
yeah, that's Derrick White, glorious king.
So when we wrote this script for this podcast, we did not have to feel the need to address something that we're about to address. But, however, about 2 hours before the podcast, we sat down and started recording. We got some leaked jersey news on this on Twitter or X, however you want to call it. courtesy of Ian in the Celtics Talk Weekly group chat, who originally sent it to all of us. And there was a little uproar in the group chat before eventually we just sat here, and before we press the record button, we were able to kind of voice our opinions and get our emotions out, guys. But now it feels like worth noting because, again, online Celtics fans, we posted onto Celtics Talk Weekly, very unhappy and unsatisfied with what the NBA had put out. This 2024-2025 Boston Celtics Cities jerseys are, in a nice way of saying it, underwhelming, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like we can talk about the Celtics jersey specifically, but just to talk about all of them first, 20 out of the 30 designs are the same exact design from last year, just in a different color. I think that pretty much sums up Nike's, MO with this whole thing. And like, you know what? I'm on Jaylen Brown's side now. I also have a problem with Nike. So but yeah, so I am here now joining Jaylen Brown's fight in being against Nike now. Because the Celtics jersey, they took the same exact design from last year, but instead of using the same Boston font that they used the Miami Heat's Heat Culture font for the words. It makes zero sense to me. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. And like, maybe it's just the thing that every year when you win the championship, you get like the worst jersey possible the next season. Because last year's Nuggets, like the 5280 jerseys, those
they got those
either,
again.
so.
They're just in white now, like you said.
Yeah, they're just in white, and they're like rainbow colors. They're like a weather pattern or something. Like, I don't really know. I don't get it, but sure. Whatever, Nike.
I mean, I think the jerseys from the first look, in my opinion, are just absolutely atrocious. I think the NBA and the Celtics as a whole, Nike missed a perfect opportunity. The Celtics are coming off of a banner year, a championship year. To me, there's no reason. There's just no absolute reason. I genuinely thought that the green and gold jerseys were coming back. I thought the green and gold jerseys were going to come back. I thought that it was evident. I thought that there's essentially, in my opinion, no excuse. The St. Patrick's Day jerseys the Celtics used to wear in the Paul Pierce days, Kevin Garnett days. I mean, even if you want to kick it to the IT days when they switched up the design a little bit, but still kept the green and gold, like that would have been that would have just been the absolute perfect way to bring back the green and gold jerseys. Whether it's a city edition jersey or a classic edition jersey, I know some teams get classic edition jerseys. There's no reason why we shouldn't have a green and gold jersey in the rotation next year, especially coming off of a championship. But as for the color scheme of the Celtics uniform, they're not even Celtics colors. It's the Milwaukee Buck green. It's the neon green. And it's like, it looks like, the Timberwolves green. It looks like charcoal. I don't know, man. It's a terrible jersey. I would say it's worse than the Parquet Pride jerseys from 2014, the sleeve jerseys, Adidas sleeve jerseys.
Screw it. Give me the sleeve jerseys over these. I swear to God, give me the sleeve jerseys.
No, absolutely. And I am one of those, and you guys know this. I'm a big jersey guy. I am also one to, I will give my final judgment when I see them on the court. We were mentioning before we hit record that will Boston use this in the rotation, or will this be a jersey that they won't use, that the league will be like, all right, you guys are playing on national TV. It's an NBA Cup game. Let's throw this jersey on. And, because everything's about marketing now. Everything's about money. Personally, as a jersey collector, I will be buying this jersey. In my personal opinion, I'm not a big fan of this jersey at all. I think the Celtics and the NBA and Nike as a whole just absolutely dropped the ball in this uniform. And like Ian said, the jerseys around the association, they're just getting lazier and lazier. Me, I love minimal. I love simple. I love clean and basic. I think there's creativity and all that, but I think it's just absolutely horrendous that, like Ian said, they're the same exact jerseys as last year. The Knicks, instead of a blue jersey, it's now white with the same exact design. The Miami Heat are making this. I can't believe they're keeping the Heat culture jerseys. Those are probably one of the worst jerseys in NBA history, definitely in Miami Heat history, and they're keeping that. So I think the NBA dropped the ball on it.
Another thing I want to say before you go, there was one thing I wanted to say is, do you remember one game in the playoffs where the Celtics actually wore their city jerseys last year? I don't remember one game. They didn't wear them.
They
They didn't
didn't.
wear them at all. So
No.
I hope these jerseys are just for the NBA Cup games.
Probably will be, yeah.
Right.
Because
Right.
I don't, because like even last season, like even after the NBA Cup, I don't remember them wearing the jerseys at all either. So,
well, my thing
honestly,
is does the team get any say in the jerseys? Do we know, or is it strictly just the league's designing office?
I don't know. I know Ian. Remember, Ian and I went to a bar, and the guy used to work for ESPN, and he told us that like everything about that, especially like jerseys and stuff, it's all about money. It's all about marketing. So like that's why national TV games, like looking at national TV games, and they're most likely wearing their city edition jerseys. They're most likely wearing their statement edition jerseys. A lot of times, what they'll do is they'll probably wear the most rated jersey, highest rated jersey they have, right? So like
Right.
if the jersey sales for Boston is the green jersey, right? Usually
Right.
the home team picks the jersey, the equipment manager will throw it in locker vision, and then the team has to pick an opposing color. So say Miami picks red, well, Boston will probably go white or green because that's their most high rated jersey. That's kind of how it is. It's all about money, man. It's all about marketing. It's all about money. It's all about strategy. As little as uniforms.
But it's like for me, the jersey, and again, it's like Boston has a rich history of their jerseys being classic and clean and white and green, right? It's that rhymed. That was nice. Classic and clean, white and green. Someone write that
You
down.
think you're JB? Kids hopping on JB's track.
All right, but like in all seriousness, they have like a very like basic jersey scheme and all that stuff, right? Rich tradition, and I love that. And it kind of seems like, and I said this before the podcast started, it seems like they try to go like minimalistic and simple, but it's like, all right, if you're gonna go minimalistic, excuse me, and simple, then keep the original color schemes, the original design concepts. Don't like go futuristic and minimal and be like, oh yeah, tradition. Here's a gross charcoal neon green jersey for the rich tradition Celtics. It's like, no, like,
Right.
it's just like, it's like contradicting itself because it's like, there's no tradition in these jerseys. It's not creative. It's like, give us a new throwback jersey that we can rock in 20 years from now. And that's throwback, right? It's like, it's kind of disappointing that after a title run year that the league, puts out what, they did with us. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, if we're going to win in them, we're going to win in them. So it doesn't matter what you're wearing if you're winning.
I know you liked Rob. You loved the classic jerseys from like 2 or 3 years ago, the white ones with the green strap on the shoulder.
those were fun.
Love the
Those
75th
were
anniversaries. Beautiful.
Yes, they were fire. They were fire. But what I will say is, with the whole classic jersey, you see like a lot of teams' classic jerseys are their actual jerseys from a few years ago. Like this year, the Raptors are bringing back the purple, right? The Celtics should have done that this year and brought back the green and gold. With
Right,
like
no
that's
doubt,
like the
exactly.
perfect like they just coming off a championship, and you guys know me, I'm a big Celtics, like the old green and black jerseys from the Rondo days, like
Right.
that's my favorite Celtics jersey. Why aren't we getting a classic jersey like that? So
Right.
this coming off a championship year, coming off winning a gold medal, Jayson Tatum, Derrick White, Drew Holiday, coming off of winning a gold Larry O'Brien trophy. No reason why the jerseys this year shouldn't have been green and gold.
Honestly, like it literally makes no sense to me. If they wanted to bring back a classic one though, and like I was doing research on something for an article, and this is why this one came to the top of my mind. In 2007, they had the Italy jerseys where they had the Italy flag in
Oh
the.
yeah.
I have
That
a
would
couple
be
of those.
cool. That would
That
be
would.
sick.
Yeah. Because they were
But
creative.
also, if they really wanted to do something city edition, why don't they do something like the Red Sox, yellow and blue?
Right. It's like get
Why don't
creative.
like they
No,
don't
like
necessarily like they don't have to do the exact like neon yellow that the Red Sox have for their city edition jerseys, but use the blue and like have yellow
I mean,
around it or something.
You have one of like the MBTA ones, don't you? Like the
I
train
do,
station.
yeah.
Like
Shout out Pete M. Rogers and the Banner 18 shop for making all
yeah.
the custom jerseys. And like I swear to God, like guys like him and other NBA designers on Twitter seem to make better designs than Nike sometimes. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
majority
honestly,
of the time.
you can I don't know. It feels like there was just so many things they could have done, and it kind of felt like the Celtics thing was just like a last minute thing they had to throw together.
Yeah, we
So
got like the short end of the stick this year, which is again, it feels like we're always getting the short end of the stick.
they were too busy hyping up the freaking Raptors ones with the dunking dinosaur on it.
Yeah, I know. It's
Which
ridiculous.
I can't lie, they're kind of fire, but like still.
And you kind of like what Justin said before we move on here, because I do want to move on, but Justin made a really good point earlier about marketing and sales and all this stuff. It's probably a thought in their head that Boston jerseys are going to fly off the shelves, right? Despite what you put out, people are going to want to buy Boston Celtics jerseys. They're probably, I think they're the third highest team sales in the league behind, I want to say the Lakers and the Warriors. Or the two ahead of them. Maybe Chicago, I think, might be 1 and 2 with the Lakers, and the Celtics are 3. I don't know for sure. But, you figure out, you put out a Celtics jersey, it's going to sell. They're a very popular franchise. Is probably why they put more effort into the Raptors and the Grizzlies and those types of teams, because
small market,
right? The small market teams who the jerseys aren't really going to sell if it's not, you don't have a player like John Morant, but it's like a Scotty Barnes, white Raptor jerseys that I saw. Like, that's a jersey where if I saw it and I was financially like, I'm saying like, oh, that's a jersey I might want to get myself. So I do think like that's a big factor into it, is unfortunately for the Celtics. And you kind of see it with the Lakers and the Warriors this year too. They have some pretty ugly jerseys because they figure like, all right, whatever we put out, it's going to sell. People like LeBron, people like Steph, people like the Celtics, it is what it is. So you got to take that into consideration. But, no, I'm on team Ian and Jaylen Brown here. Come on, Nike. I need you to do better, because
I'm wondering what the numbers are going to look like on this jersey.
Yeah,
because like all the jersey concepts that came out have no numbers on them, so like it'll be interesting to see what font the numbers are. Because like if it's like some basic like font, I think it'll make the jersey look even worse.
It's gonna be
Ian's only team Jaylen Brown this week, because last week
2 weeks,
was,
2
weeks ago he was not. He was you're right. That was 2 weeks ago, Ian. You're right.
That was 2 weeks ago? I don't remember.
It was.
I don't know.
You're right. It was 2 weeks ago that you were trashing on Jaylen Brown.
I was not trashing on Jaylen Brown. I've always been on team Jaylen Brown. So,
well, I'll tell you what, his running mate Jayson Tatum has had quite a campaign this summer, dropping a new book, winning a gold medal, being on the cover of 2K25, Sports Illustrated. The guy really has been at the forefront of what an NBA championship brings. Guys, the other night he was on the late night show with Jimmy Fallon. I'm a big late night show guy in general. I love it when athletes and rappers and artists and actors, when they go on and they kind of get to sit down and have some fun. Jayson Tatum was on the late night show promoting his new book. You saw him rapping. You saw him talking to Jimmy Fallon about a couple different topics. Now, he had 2 quotes that I thought were rather interesting. The first one being, he was asked what his finals rematch for next year was. Now, he was under the gun here. Jimmy was trying to get him to go quick. But guys, Jayson Tatum says he sees a finals rematch of this year, Celtics Mavericks next year. What do you guys have to say about JT's finals prediction for next year?
I love Jayson Tatum. I think he's wrong. I don't think the Mavericks are going to be contenders again. But would it be cool if they did? Sure, because then he could have 2 rings over the Mavericks. So that works for me. I think it'll end up being the Thunder. But hey, you know what? If he wants a rematch with the Mavericks, I'll take it. If people want to pick the Mavericks again, then I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that. 2 rings on Luka Doncic sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if Dallas will be there in the end next year. They definitely, obviously adding Klay Thompson. And we'll see. But I think I'm with Ian on this one. I don't know if I see Dallas in the NBA Finals again next year. I am 100% with him when it comes to Oklahoma City Thunder. You guys know where I stand on them. I think Minnesota could be interesting. I think they're a very deep team. I don't know, but I think it'd be between, my pick would be between Minnesota and Oklahoma City, but it'd be interesting. It'd certainly be interesting to see Dallas again in the finals.
I think the West is back to their 2012 to 2016 days, where it truly is the wild West. Like, it is going to be so difficult to get yourself out of the West back-to-back years. I mean, it's difficult in the East, period, right? Like, it's just difficult to go back-to-back. However, I'm going to disagree with you guys on the notion that the Mavericks aren't contenders or don't have a chance. Because I think anytime you have Luka, or not a chance, but like in the mix in the conference finals, obviously, I would feel comfortable with putting Dallas back in the conference finals off the premise of you have Luka Doncic. I think Luka has kind of entered the status where anytime you have Luka, you have a chance. On the contrary, on the flip side, supporting your guys' point, I think the West is super deep. And I do think it's going to be extremely, like, you could see Dallas, right, who is, again, has the stature and has the material and the makings of a championship team with the Klay Thompson and the Kyrie Irving and the Luka Doncic, in their depth, Derek Lively, who gets out in the first round because their matchups the 4-5 against, the Minnesota, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I'm going to disagree with Jayson Tatum because I don't think the Mavericks get back. But, is it out of the question? No, I don't think it's out of the question.
You know what's crazy? I was messing around on 2K25 the other day, in the playoff mode, and I'm sitting there because I'm trying to realistically make out my predictions as well while I'm doing this. The West is so incredibly hard,
right?
Because I'm getting down to the 6, 7, 8 seeds because you can't set the play-in tournament. I'm getting out of 6, 7, 8 seeds, and I'm like, who do I throw in there? Who's missing the playoffs out of Sacramento, New Orleans?
Right.
Obviously, now Memphis is going to be a huge question because when Memphis
yep.
gets healthy, so it's like you go up and down the Western Conference. It really is wild, wild West, and I don't know. The West is going to be crazy this year. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember. I forget what year it was exactly, but there was teams that, an 8 seed had 52 wins.
Right.
It was just.
And you know what? So do you remember the year? Obviously, you remember this 2016, the year the Cavs won the finals, came back down 3-1. Yep. The Warriors won 73-9, right? 73-9. And yep. San Antonio here has this historic year. They go 40-1 at home, right? They finish with 67 wins, and they get bounced out in the second round, not to Golden State, but to the 60 or 59 win Oklahoma City Thunder team, who obviously went on to blow that 3-1 lead. So it's like, if you look at that, it's like, that's where I think the West might be back at, right? Maybe not to that magnitude, but it's like, there might be a team who wins 66 games and the 2 seed wins 61 games. And here comes the 4 seed who knocks you out. And we saw it this year with Dallas. It's like, that's just how difficult it is to get out of the Western Conference right now. The playing field is so, the 1 seed's here, and then the 7 seed's probably like right here, right?
Yeah.
Eastern Conference, the 1 seed's up here, and the 7 seed's like all the way. You can't even I bet anymore. It's that's how far down it is. So it's like, that's how I see it.
Shout out Eastern Conference basketball, baby.
It's just absolutely incredible that you mentioned that, and it's like, and then you get the middle of the pack teams where it's like, what's Phoenix going to look like next year? And then you get the Lakers and the Clippers, and it's like the list goes on and on. If I'm looking at the Western Conference, what are the teams that are out of it from the jump? You got to see like Portland, right? And then what else
Portland,
after that?
San Antonio.
What else is out there?
San Antonio. Portland, I don't know. Wemby could.
Yeah,
but even you.
Right. No,
you look at Houston. Like Houston, we haven't mentioned Houston yet. Rob, that was one of your dark horse teams last year. Like,
right.
We could go on and on about this Western Conference.
So, I think just looking at the Western Conference, just looking from afar, I think you can say the Trailblazers are out.
Yep.
The Jazz are out.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. I think you can maybe say the Warriors, but
are we there yet?
I don't know if I put Warriors out as like to go along with your Luka Doncic point.
They also have Steph Curry.
They do. Steph Curry, yeah.
But it's like they got Luka and Kyrie.
Right.
It's like, what do you got? You got Steph and Wiggins.
Yeah, and Draymond. Right. Yeah, I know what you mean. But I do think as long as you have Steph, you definitely have a chance. But that is still though, that's just unbelievable. If you're looking at the bottom of the West and that talent is at the bottom of the West, that just shows you how deep the West is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and no doubt.
It's just ridiculous.
But yeah, you got OKC, Denver, Minnesota, the Clippers, the Mavericks, the Suns, Lakers, Pelicans, Kings, Warriors, Rockets, Spurs, Grizzlies. That's incredible. 13 out of the 14, 13 out of the 15 teams in the West could potentially be playoff contenders, and that's kind of crazy. And like, depending on how you feel about the Clippers, I personally am not very high on them, so you could maybe see them missing the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Maybe the Lakers, maybe the Grizzlies, depending on injuries and such. But I mean, there's just so much competition in the West, but at the same time, it feels like it's even competition in a way. Like, I don't think there's like one team that's like, there's not a whole bunch of dominant teams in the Western Conference like it was back in the day, but like there's just a lot of evenly matched teams
Right.
that are
Well, it's much harder to win.
Going to end up close.
Yes, it's much harder to win more games in the regular season from how evenly evenly balanced the field is really now. It's like, you see guys like Andrew Nimhard going for 40, 39 points in a playoff game. It's because that's where the talent level's at.
Because even look at the Eastern Conference last year. The Celtics won 64, the Knicks won 50, Milwaukee 49, Cleveland 48, Orlando 47, Pacers 47. And then look at the West. You got the Thunder 57, the Nuggets 57, the Timberwolves 56, the Clippers 51, Mavericks 50, Suns 49. And you can even look at the play-in. Lakers 47, Pelicans 49, Kings 46, and Warriors 46. And the Rockets won 41 games and missed the playoffs. The Bulls won 39 and were the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference. So
I mean, the 3 seed in the East would have been the 6 or 7 seed in the West, which is just
if you look at it. The Celtics season was so historic last year. The difference between first place Boston and second place New York was 14 games. The difference between Thunder first seed and Rockets 11th seed, which is totally out of playoff contention and playing, was 16. Like that's just unbelievable. That is just absolutely unbelievable. Like the
and that's why
in the 3 seed came down to the last game.
Right, and that's why we sit here as Celtics fans or whatever you want to call us, and that's why we're so confident. And yes, the East got better. I will say, there were some moves. New York getting Mikal Bridges, and although I'm not sold on that, and Philly getting Paul George, not sold on that. There were some moves that the East got better, but not to just the depth and magnitude in which you see the West in.
I was just going to say, I don't think the East overall got better. I think the East got top heavy better, right? Yeah. Like New York was already there in the upper echelons. Philly was already there in the upper echelons in the Eastern Conference. I just think the rich got richer in terms of, those top heavy teams, even Boston being able to bring back their star caliber players, re-signing them, right? I think the East got very top heavy better. But if you're looking at teams like at the bottom, like Charlotte and Washington, Detroit, like Toronto, like those are the same 4 teams that are going to, potentially miss the play-in, right? Like it's going to be similar. The standings are going to look very similar, maybe a few different flicks and switches, but for the most part, the East is going to look very similar this year. In the West, as we mentioned, Ian just mentioned, there's 13 playoff contenders in the West, you know, so there's not 13 playoff contenders in the Eastern Conference. I'll tell you that right now. There's barely even 10. I mean, Christ, there's 8. We don't even need to play in tournament. They're like, we don't. They're really
and so, alongside with that, Tatum made one more quote. This time being asked on who he thinks the 2024-2025 NBA MVP will be. His response is, "Can I say myself?" Right. So obviously, Jayson Tatum, you're not going to sit up there and say, "Oh, I think Nikola Jokic is going to win it next year." Right. Of course, you're going to say yourself. So first, before we, preface what we're going to say or anything about what Tatum says or what we think happens, let's, of course, you're going to say yourself. You have to say yourself. First of all. Second of all, do we think Jayson Tatum has a realistic, I don't want to say realistic because he has a realistic shot, but what are Jayson Tatum's chances / what does Jayson Tatum really need to do in order to walk away with his first MVP?
I mean, I guess I think the thing that Jayson Tatum needs to do specifically, I think if he has like 7 assists a game, 6 assists a game, plus double-digit rebounds, plus like 28 points a game or so, I don't see why that can't be the MVP. And like, I get it, Shea and Luka and Jokic and Giannis are all going to average probably over 30. Same thing with Joel Embiid. But like, with no Kristaps Porzingis to start the season. Tatum will probably have to play a small ball five a little bit throughout the year. So if he's playing good to elite defense, plus scoring and facilitating at an elite level on the offensive end, being the number one team in the NBA, I mean, I don't see why he shouldn't win it. Granted, it's just one of those things with the NBA though, because the MVP is pretty much the best scorer award at this point. So, but I think Jayson Tatum is probably the most valuable player to his team, and who knows, maybe there will be other injuries that pop up to where Jayson Tatum needs to take even bigger of a load, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But like, say another guy on the Celtics does go down, if Tatum steps up, I don't see why he shouldn't win the MVP.
I want to say two things here, right, about Tatum winning the MVP. One, I think, or a couple things. First, I think it's extremely realistic, right? I mean, like Ian said, he's probably the most valuable player to his team in the league, and they're the best team in the league. Another thing is that narrative that we saw heavily pushed the past 2 years of, oh, he doesn't have a ring, which was so astronomical. It has never happened in the history of, it was never a narrative ever pushed in the league that we've ever seen any, NBA MVP really win an MVP, after his first ring. It really, the MVP comes first. However, that narrative's out the window. Now, in terms of what Jayson Tatum needs to do, two things he needs to do, in my opinion. One, he needs to string together consistent basketball all season long, right? And a part of that, Ian, I think plays heavily into what you just said, his passing, his assist numbers, right? Keep those assist numbers high, keep passing. That shows consistency, that shows that you're in the game every single game. But with Tatum, he goes on these month stretches where it's like 1 month, it's, the best player in the league, Jayson Tatum. He's averaging 34, he's averaging 8, he's averaging 5 or 6. Then the next month, it's like, okay, well, it's Jayson Tatum, 3-point shots not falling, right? And it's 23 on inefficient shooting, and, still a good Jayson Tatum, but not MVP level JT. So last night, or 2 nights ago, I was watching, last night, I was watching a YouTuber named Jimmy High Roller. Now, if you don't know who Jimmy High Roller is, he dives deep into the numbers of the NBA. And this one, he was looking at who in the league best resembles LeBron James. Now, spoiler alert, if you're going to watch this video, it's not Jayson Tatum. But within this video, he broke down Jayson Tatum's shot chart. And essentially, he broke it down into 3, different levels of the game, right? Layups, mid-range, and 3-point attempts. Now, Jayson Tatum took 39% of his overall shots from behind the arc, to 24% in the paint and 21% in the mid-range. Now, if you were to ask me what Jayson Tatum's weakest part of his game is, guys, it's his 3-point shooting. So, I get it. It's Missoula ball. But if Jayson Tatum wants to take his game to the next level, I want to see that 39% from behind the arc be translated to 39% in the paint. And I want to see that 23.7% that is taken from inside the paint in that layup territory. I want to see that become his 3-point number, because I believe with a guy like Jayson Tatum, the less threes he takes, the better player he is. And now, mind you, that doesn't say, when you're hot, let them fly, right? If you got it feeling, if you're feeling yourself, put up 9, 10 threes, occasionally. But I need to see if Jayson Tatum wants to take his game to the next level, and the next level for JT is MVP caliber, number 1 player, self-proclaimed, nationally proclaimed player in the league. I'm looking at that stat. I'm looking at that 40%, nearly 40% of his shots are coming from behind the arc. You can't do that next year. I need to see you more so in the paint.
I agree. I think there were many games last year where Jayson Tatum really, I think it's like settling, right? Settling. Right. And when Jayson Tatum, and there's clips of us, there's so many podcasts and post-game shows. And when we did the pre-game shows, so many of our conversations were how different of a player Jayson Tatum is when he drives the basketball, and how that really just opens up the court for the Celtics in general. It's just a whole other world for the Celtics and for Jayson Tatum himself specifically. I mean, we say it all the time. It's like, oh, and I'm also want to look back at Jayson Tatum highlights And look at the 3-point shots. How many of those 3-point shots were forced upon? I think Jayson Tatum, like there's games where Tatum's shooting like 5 for 23, like 5 for 18, whatever the number is, and he'll still just in rhythm step back three. Right. And I just think Jayson Tatum needs to steer away from that. And I'm 100% with you, Rob. I think that if Jayson Tatum can get inside more, even use that mid-range game more. I mean, Jayson Tatum's one of the best players in the mid-range when he's attacking the mid-range. So I am 100% with you, Rob. I'm very glad that you brought that talking point up.
Right.
Because it's something that needs to be said. And I know the 3-point shot is Joe Mazzulla's bread and butter. And I understand that, we might be critiquing here, after we just won a championship, but that's yeah, that's all you got for me.
I agree. I mean, I agree with both of you guys. He needs to be consistent, especially, we've seen times where like Jayson Tatum is an MVP candidate because he goes on like a month-long stretch where he's the greatest person to ever touch a basketball. And then there's also moments where he has like 2 or 3 weeks at a time where he just can't find his shot whatsoever. So,
Right.
and I also agree with the change in his shot distribution. It's safe to say that I'm not sure his jump shot is completely broken, but because it's pretty much been the same throughout his entire career. If you look from his rookie year to like 2022 to like now, it's not too different. They're just not falling. And that's kind of due to the fact that he's put on weight. And that's good because now he can drive and attack the paint. And driving and attacking the paint will make him better when it comes to facilitating as well. Because as we saw in the NBA Finals, if you're going to collapse on Jayson Tatum when he's driving, he can make the right pass when he needs to. So I personally, it kind of just feels like this is the year where Jayson Tatum pretty much has everything stacked to where it's, I mean, I'm not going to say it's his to lose, but like this is probably the best chance he's going to have to win it.
And it's funny because you say, his weight. That's such a good point. His weight. He has put on so much weight and muscle, and he is so strong, and his build is so, abnormal to be 6'9", about 230, 225 pounds, with a 6'11" wingspan, and to be as good with the ball in your hands as he is. It's like, don't settle, get to the hoop, get to the rim. And, this is what I will say. If you want to ask me, right, if you were like, okay, Rob, what makes you feel confident that Tatum wins the MVP? It's the playoffs. It's what I saw from him in the playoffs, because I'll tell you what, his shot was god awful, but he was still producing. I mean, he was still getting his 30 points. He was still getting his 10 rebounds. He was still getting his 7 assists.
He was
and the
producing,
Celtics were winning.
And we were literally talking about his facilitating. That's what you need.
Exactly. So, that's what makes me feel so comfortable with Tatum winning, the MVP next year.
Rob's breaking up. Rob's breaking up right now. Well, I think Jayson Tatum has done like just the perfect job of really being so valuable to the team. And it's like you kind of mentioned it earlier, Ian, where it's like MVPs kind of voted upon scoring now. Like that's all they look at, really. It's like the scoring numbers, like always putting up between 30 and 35 points a game. Like that's MVP stuff right there. It's like, well, Jayson Tatum now is putting upwards of 30 points a game, but he's also grabbing 11 rebounds, dishing out. Like, how many times last year, I should say, did we see Jayson Tatum dish out 7, 8, 9 assists per game, sometimes 10 occasionally? So it's like Jayson Tatum has taken this huge step throughout the past just year, and each year he gets better and better, as hopefully that we can have Rob rejoin in this conversation.
This Wi-Fi is so bad.
If you're listening to the podcast, Rob is at a McDonald's in New Hampshire right now.
I honestly think if I was at a McDonald's in New Hampshire, I'd have better Wi-Fi than what I do. I mean, it's terrible. But Yeah, no, I do think I don't know how much you guys heard. I apologize. I got to figure out this Wi-Fi, but yeah, I do think I agree with both of you. To Ian's point with his size, his shots taken a down, kind of a downward spiral. I don't want to say that, but it's kind of what it feels like. And then Justin, like what you just said, is playmaking. Playing off of what Ian said, has really taken another leap and another step. So I do think that next level for Tatum to hit, entering year 8, you see it all the time. 7-8 is when you kind of take the strides. You saw what Jaylen Brown did. He came out a whole new player entering year 8. So I do think it's to win that MVP. And I'll tell you what, you're going to be the topic of conversation. You're the defending champs. You have the 3rd most national TV games. You got that burden off your back that you can't win a ring. It's like, what more can, the narrative can they drive that prevents them from winning it? So I do think that will be interesting and fun to see. Up next, guys, we enter the segment that I've come to love. And honestly, I want to say really this whole podcast has really been a lot of Around the Hardwood, but I guess today we're officially entered into that segment of Around the Hardwood where we take a look around the NBA and we're, give our thoughts and opinions where the rest of the league is. I know we kind of looked around at the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference and where they stack up against the Celtics odds, winning a championship, but we also kind of looked at how they stacked up against the Dallas Mavericks guys. But some news broke yesterday. A list got put out by CBS on their top 30 coaches. I don't know if you guys got a chance to sit down and kind of look at their list as a whole on their website. But however, before the podcast started, again, I knew we were going to talk about it. I sat down, I kind of, gave it a look, investigated it, did a little bit of research on it. And it was quite interesting because they broke the 30 coaches down into about 8 tiers of coaches. And, within that, the top 13 kind of struck my attention. Now, I'll break it down for you guys. There's 4 tiers that put the top 13 coaches in the league into one. The 4th tier being obvious floor raisers, right? Those coaches being Mike Brown for the Sacramento Kings, Chris Finch for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Joe Mazzulla for our Boston Celtics, Tom Thibodeau for the New York Knicks, Mike Budenholzer for the Phoenix Suns, and our former head coach, Ime Udoka, for the Houston Rockets. The next tier, Ian, is the Wonderkinds, right? This has two head coaches, the 2 young guns, Will Hardy and Mark Dagnall. Tier 2, the elites, Tyronn Lue, Steve Kerr, Rick Carlisle, Nick Nurse. Then the number 1 spot has his own tier of his own, which I do agree with this. The undisputed king, Eric Spoelstra for the Miami Heat. Now, Ian, I'm interested to hear. Now, I know where you're going to start with this, and it's going to be Joe Mazzulla, which go for it, all for it. I want to hear your initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways on this list as a whole, and then I want you to get into Joe Mazzulla for me.
Well, my whole thing as a whole, I don't think it's 100% correct, honestly. If I'm talking about coaches, not about Joe Mazzulla and their positioning, I don't think Steve Kerr is really in the elites anymore, at least.
Right.
I don't know why the Wonderkins are above the obvious floor raisers. Yep. Like, I don't know why that section as a whole is above the floor raisers. And is Mike Budenholzer really still that good of a head coach? Like, he hasn't coached the Suns yet. Right. And when he was with the Bucks, the whole reason he got fired was because he never made adjustments.
Yeah.
And okay, I can agree. Nick Nurse, I think he's in an elite tier. Rick Carlisle, sure, but he doesn't really make a whole lot of adjustments either. Ty Lue, sure, if you want. I guess if I'm talking about Joe Mazzulla now, I don't really know how Will Hardy and Ime Udoka are both above Joe Mazzulla.
Right.
I feel like Joe Mazzulla is more of a floor raiser than Ime Udoka is, and he's pretty much shown it. Even when he didn't know what he was doing as a head coach, he still led the Celtics almost to the NBA Finals in his first year. Granted, Ime Udoka did lead the Celtics to their finals in their first year, but he hasn't really been able to replicate the same thing with the Rockets. And Will Hardy, I think he's a good head coach. However, the Jazz haven't done anything. Yeah, Will Hardy, he's a good coach. He's been able to get the most out of players. But is he really that much better than Joe Mazzulla? like I never really understood that. I think Tom Thibodeau is honestly a little kind of low because I think Tom Thibodeau could be in the elites of the coaching just for
Yeah.
the fact that he's been able to do it for so long and he's found so much success as head coach.
Right.
Like I feel like he should be in the same conversation as a guy like Ty Lue and Steve Kerr and Rick Carlisle. Granted, he hasn't won a championship yet, but I still think he should be up there. But yeah, I don't really understand how Joe Mazzulla is so high. I mean, is so low on this list. And I think there's a lot of head coaches that were put over him. And I saw the guy who made this article. I saw him on Twitter. He was going back and forth with Celtics fans. And he pretty much said that, like, because the Celtics have so stacked a roster, coaching doesn't really matter. So it doesn't really matter where you put Joe Mazzulla in a way. And I'm like, really? Because like Joe Mazzulla it's still his system. He's still
Right.
the one that, kind of controls everything. I still don't think that matter. I think Joe Mazzulla matters a lot to the Celtics. Because as you've seen, they just won a championship with him. They didn't win a championship with Brad Stevens. They didn't win a championship with Ime Udoka. They won a championship with Joe Mazzulla as the head coach of the Celtics with his system that they're running. And yes, he has elite players that can do the best for his system, but I still think that Joe Mazzulla's system can work with pretty much any team.
Right. So I think I agree with you as a whole. I think my problem with this list is the second tier, the elites. That makes no sense to me. Tyronn Lue, I think he's respectfully up there. I think he's done a phenomenal job with what he's been able to work with the Clippers, and obviously, in Cleveland. But kind of playing off of what you just said, it's like, okay, when you have LeBron as your head, best player, how much does the head coach really need to do? How much are you coaching the NBA? The Cleveland Cavaliers when LeBron's on your team, right? Mind you, I don't think that way, but if you're going to use that logic, apply it everywhere where it's needed, not just under Joe Mazzulla. So I disagree with that. I don't think Joe Mazzulla is 11. I also disagree with Steve Kerr, Rick Carlisle, and Nick Nurse being 4, 3, and 2. Because quite frankly, Nick Nurse has not done much at all since that championship run with the Raptors. I think he had a phenomenal second year coming off of that, in the bubble when they had Siakam and Kyle Lowry. They kind of had some juice left. They made the second round, 7 games against Boston. But since then, Nick Nurse has done nothing. And I think that's worth noting. He's been fired. He's left a job, and he's picking up a new one where they, wildly underachieved and got bounced in the first round. And, he was the head guy on that team. I think Joe Mazzulla should be roped into Will Hardy and Mark Dagnall. I think he is absolutely the tier of Hardy and Dagnall. Now, I don't think I'm not sitting up here and saying Joe Mazzulla is the best coach in the league or the second best coach. Do I think he can get there? Yeah, he's still young, but I think he's absolutely with Hardy and Dagnall as a really good young head coach that is finding his way and has a good system and is a very good motivator. And I think he deserves his flowers. I think 11 is way too low. I think that, Budenholzer being over him is kind of crazy. And who wasn't there in this list who I'm kind of interested was Mike Malone. I think Malone deserves to probably be in the top 15, top 13. He was, he is an NBA champion. He's, brought the Nuggets to, many big playoff series. And, I will say it's not like they're working with a whole lot. Jokic is awesome and truly a generational talent, 3-time MVP. But it's not like Denver's just oozing this talent, right? It's Jokic
and they've lost a lot of their talent too. And he's still been able to get them far in the playoffs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I absolutely think, Mike Malone's a top 4 tiered head coach in the league. And I'm kind of shocked and surprised that, he wasn't given that respect and wasn't put up there. So kind of shocking and weird that Mazzulla also was put at 11. I don't hate it. 11. I don't think there's 10 coaches better than him. I think there's probably 4 or 5, probably 6, who you can conceive as better than him. But again, it was an interesting list. I will say I did like how he tiered them. I do, because again, you can play around with the tiers. It doesn't really matter if Ime Udoka is 8 and Mazzulla is 11 or vice versa, because if they're in the same tier. I love when people do their rankings like that, because I think that really is how you should rank players and coaches as in tiers, because I think, it's unfair to, if you were to rank, players, it's like number 5 and number 1 or number 2 are probably in the same tier of caliber player. But lastly, we got one more topic we want to go over before we end this podcast, and it's about expansion. earlier in the podcast, just a while ago, Ian, we talked about how, the league is at a point where there's so much talent, and we're seeing this, with the teams, like the Kings in the West, and how, Andrew Nimar goes for 40 points in a playoff game. It's like, Silver has said an expansion is coming, but not as soon as we thought. Now, I'm kind of interested. What teams do you want to see get an expansion team, if any?
I think if there is any expansion, it's going to be Seattle and Las Vegas.
I agree.
It feels like
100%.
Yeah, that's a lock, honestly. I guess other places, I guess you could say Pittsburgh. I feel like that would be cool.
Pittsburgh would be nice. Not DC, Baltimore could be another cool one.
Baltimore. You could do St. Louis, although that means Jayson Tatum would probably request
find
a
his
trade.
way down there.
He would find a way up to St. Louis. But yeah, there's like a lot of places that a lot of other like sports leagues have tapped into and have been able to find their way. But yeah, I think definitely, but I do definitely think for sure Vegas and Seattle are going to be the two teams that get an expansion team first.
Yes.
Seattle, obviously, because the Supersonics and all that stuff, but Las Vegas is quickly becoming known for being a sports city. They have the Vegas Golden Knights of the NHL that won the Stanley Cup, not this year, but the year before. They have the Oakland Athletics who are moving to Las Vegas. They have the Las Vegas Aces, the WNBA team. They've won back-to-back championships. They have the Raiders. So they just have a lot of sports. And if you're the NBA, why wouldn't you want to tap in to the Vegas market? Now, granted, they might not want to do that because of the Las Vegas Aces, but still, the Las Vegas Aces have a really passionate fan base.
They do.
And they can fill out an arena pretty quickly. And they also have the new stadium that they built for the Golden Knights that they could easily turn into a basketball stadium if they wanted to. So I personally think Vegas would probably be the number one place that they're going to look at. But I think Seattle would obviously be number two. And I think they should really look into Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh is good for pretty much every other sports team out there.
The Pittsburgh's got a strong fan base. I think they're gonna do. This is what I think happens. I think they're waiting for LeBron to retire.
For sure.
To kick that in, and then LeBron will be a part owner of that Vegas team. Now, I want to drop this bomb on you. Let me give you my perfect NBA expansion scenario. Here's what you do. You add Vegas, Las Vegas, whatever you want to call their team, right? You add Vegas, you add Seattle. I agree with you 100%. Those two teams, Seattle's like so basketball rich in culture. They deserve one as well. Vegas is like, why would you not play around in the Sin City in basketball? It's like, come on. It's like that. You go to Vegas, you should be able to go in and watch the biggest sports league in the country, in my opinion, right now. And then this is what you do. You add two teams in the West. You move New Orleans and you move Memphis to the East. Perfect. It is like there's no reason New Orleans and Memphis should be in the West. You got East Coast, West Coast. It's perfect. You got two new big cities. You got the Pelicans and you got the Memphis Grizzlies playing on the East Coast. I think that is perfect.
I think that works.
Right? And then you got 32 teams. It's perfect.
I think Minnesota is ironically closer than both of them. So they might add the Timberwolves if they wanted to, obviously.
Or 34, sorry. But yeah, right. Yeah, but it's like you add two
either
teams.
Way, I agree.
Right.
Two teams out of the West are going to end up in the East. And, I mean, that can make the East even more competitive, so that'll be fun.
Which, honestly, it's trending like the East needs a little bit of like, all right, come on, East, like get a little bit better. So, it'll be interesting to see because I'm excited. I would love expansion if done properly. I don't want it done just to get done. I want it done properly, but I trust Silver. But it'll be exciting to see. So that does it. That wraps it up for this week's episode of the CTW podcast, guys. Thank you again so much for the support. We are officially back 3 episodes in a row. This might be a new record for the past year. Yeah, we're on a roll right now. So we really do appreciate the feedback you guys have been giving us.
We're actually making episodes weekly, which is crazy.
I know, right? It's like the first time our name is true. Celtics Talk Weekly. So we've been having a lot of fun doing it, guys. Thank you so much for joining in and listening, watching, whatever you're doing, wherever platform you're watching us on. Guys, I say it at the beginning of every podcast, say at the end of every podcast. If you're not following us on all of our social medias, go do that right now in the description down below, guys. I'm Rob, my man Ian with me, and obviously Justin, his computer died, so we have to finish the show off as a duo. But Justin, best regards from all of us, guys. You guys know the drill. Until next time, go Celtics.